This is Solinco's newest string. It's called Mach 10, and in today's video I'm going to tell you everything I like about it, everything I don't like about it, how you might hybrid this string to get the most out of it for your game, and we might even talk to Winston Dew to get a quick comparison between Mach 10 and his favorite string on the market, Solinco Hyper G. So let's get into it. Actually, before we get into it, I do want to disclose a few things. We have a great working relationship with Solinco, and because of that, we have been able to test Mach 10 for like 8 months ahead of time, including during its development and prototyping phase. And they just flew me down to Indian Wells to get a little bit closer with you, the fans, work the booth, get a chance to meet a lot of you, which was an amazing experience for me. I got to see some of my favorite players play, but that does introduce some biases. Like, I'm a fan of Solinco as a company, so you might want to consider this as just like a product overview rather than a full-blown review. But that said, let's get into it with everything bad. So there are some things I don't love about Mach 10 because I don't believe in the concept of a perfect string. You know, everyone is going to have their different preferences, different things they're looking for. Were I to say there were any weaknesses specifically with Mach 10, it would be two. Both of them are because this is a pretty soft string with a lot of snapback. So anytime you have a softer string with a lot of snapback, the feel is going to be more muted. There's just less vibration going through the string bed, less friction between the strings, so that means less information is going through the string bed, through the racket, into your hand, and transferring audibly, because I do believe that sound plays a big role. So I wouldn't say Mach 10 is a particularly loud or particularly connected string, but it does fall pretty much well in line with the other softer, slicker strings that we have in the market. Specifically, I think it's about as, if not more, connected than most of the strings from Toroline. The other thing I struggled with a little bit with Mach 10 was control. So in my Rafas with my dream setup, which is Otoro in the mains, restring sync in the crosses, I can get away with 50, 51, maybe 52 pounds depending on condition, but with Mach 10 I felt myself wanting to increase the tension. I was really getting a lot of easy depth, which unfortunately kind of resulted in some overhitting for me, so I did end up bumping this up to 55 for my preferred playability. It works great in like denser pattern rackets like the T-Fight 305S, because that racket has such a low launch angle. You might want something soft to give you that easy depth. But if you're working with an open pattern like these rackets or like the T-Fight 300, 100, then you might want to consider bumping up your tension if you're used to something like Solinco Hyper G, Confidential, Tour Bite, Lynx Tour strings that are a little bit more control and feel oriented. Now, with everything bad out of the way, let's talk about something good, and that is because this video is sponsored by Direct Tennis. So thank you again to Direct Tennis for taking one for the team, sponsoring TennCom. We would not be here without Direct Tennis. They're beginning their global expansion over the next couple of months. So if you've been outside the US and you wanted to grow your audience through this community-based app, but you couldn't because Direct Tennis wasn't available to you yet, Direct Tennis is going global. So for the price of $2.99 per month, you can join their Stringers network, expand your customer base, and get access to a bunch of awesome features through their iOS app. So if you want to support TennCom, check out Direct Tennis using our links in the description below. And let's get on to everything else that's good about Mach 10. So the comfort to durability ratio, I think, is the main thing that's super impressive with Mach 10. Typically, soft strings are soft, so they break a little bit easier, they notch a little bit faster. But Mach 10 is super slippery. Like, this has been in my racket for a while, and you can see like it's still got like good snapback. It's coming back in. Okay, it's not the best because I've used it quite a bit, but it plays well. It's slippery, it lasts long, it doesn't notch super quickly, and even when it does start to notch, that slickness keeps the spin coming over and over. Compare that to another softer playing string like Solinco Hyper G Soft. The tension maintenance is so much worse with Hyper G Soft. The spin potential, I don't think is as strong. Part of that is going to be because the control isn't that great. So for me personally, Hyper G Soft, I'm like reducing my swing speed by a lot. But going into something like Mach 10, I feel confident enough to keep going after shots because I know my tension's gonna hold. I know the snapback is gonna stay in the string bed for way longer. Like Hyper G Soft, I start losing control because of the notching and the lack of snapback and more inconsistent response because of that higher friction in the string bed after like an hour of decent hitting with my Raffas, whereas Mach 10, I'm like pretty happy with it well into the third hour. So those are the things that I love about Mach 10. The feel, I'm neutral on. I would say it's not the cleanest, crispest feeling string. Like I personally do prefer just the pure hitting feel of like most of the Grapplesnake strings, Alpha, Tour Sniper, Tour M8. I think I prefer the cleaner hitting feel of like Otoro, the white version as well. But Mach 10 does feel pretty good. Like I don't think I could put a full bed of like Solinco Tour Bite or even Confidential in these Raffas because they're quite stiff. I'm starting to feel things a little bit more in my arm as I'm aging, whereas Mach 10 takes the sting out of pretty much everything. So if you're a real comfort oriented shopper, I think this is definitely one that you should check out. Now, to alleviate some of my personal struggles with the control in Mach 10, what I've been doing, as suggested by my friend Oak from Tennis Warehouse, is throwing Hyper G round in the crosses. So Mach 10 in the mains gives you that nice ball bite because it is shaped, same shape as like Hyper G Confidential that you're used to from Solinco, but it's got this lovely Hyper G round cross. And that firms things up. So Hyper G is noticeably stiffer than Mach 10. Throwing the round version in the cross firms things up, gives me a little bit more of a connected feel, gives me a lot better directional control. So with Mach 10, I didn't feel super confident taking the ball early on my forehand, pounding it up the line for an approach shot. Once I put Hyper G round in the crosses, that does improve my confidence quite a bit. But again, because Hyper G round, even though it's a round string, it doesn't have this, I guess, this cloud form tech, if you want to go that way. It doesn't have the same slickness as the Mach 10 does. So again, the durability is not quite as good with Hyper G round in the crosses as just a full bed of Mach 10. If I'm going into a tournament, I would probably rather use the hybrid as opposed to a full bed, but I could play either one in a tournament and be pretty happy. So if you're still not exactly sure if you think you should try Mach 10 versus your typical Hyper G or your typical string, let's get some thoughts from the quintessential 4.5 player. Welcome to the channel, it's Winston Du. I'm here with Winston Du, the quintessential 4.5 player. You've all seen him play at least 1 point. Keep that ball in all the time, but I wanted to check out Mach 10, get your quick thoughts on it. We know you're a Hyper G guy, have been for a long time. How does Mach 10 feel to you in comparison?
Yeah, so like Beckett said, I usually prefer Solinco Hyper G, but I've also play tested Solinco Mach 10, and Mach 10 to me is maybe slightly less spinny, but a little bit more power. So I think it's almost suited maybe more for a flatter game style, whereas Solinco Hyper G has a little bit more texture and spin potential.
So you feel like you're getting more like grab on every shot.
Yeah, and
Hyper G.
I'm usually not too much of a technical guy, but maybe I want to briefly talk about launch angle, which is like the angle of the ball coming off the racket, right? Whether if it's straight or if it's up. Yeah. I feel like with the Hyper G, because it grabs it, the ball will hit the strings and like bounce up a little bit higher, so more of an archy ball. Yeah. Whereas this is more of a linear ball or slightly straighter. Right. Which is kind of why I feel like it's more suited for a flatter game style. Right. In my opinion.
So you like the players that I've played with in my life, which is like a lot, but not as many as you hit like a lot of spin.
On the forehand, yeah. I like to rip it.
Even the backhand, you were pulling me off with angles earlier today. So for your philosophy, you're like, I want the string to accentuate my strengths rather than kind of make up for your deficiencies.
Yeah. If I'm naturally putting spin on the ball, I want the string to help accentuate that spin.
Yeah.
And then also provide some power, which I think the Hyper G does. Whereas the Mach 10 does as well, but it's just less of an arc, less spin.
So if you were to change one thing with Mach 10, you think it would be like a little bit better ball grab? Or?
Yeah, ball grab is a good way to say it. Maybe more texture string.
More texture.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to be sticking with Hyper G long term, you think, for the channel?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be sticking with Hyper G.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
There's a reason why it's so popular.
So after having tried Mach 10 in like all these different rackets, all these different setups, where do I think this string ranks compared to other strings on the market? Well, I would say it ranks pretty damn high. This is a pretty dang good string. I think the weaknesses of the string are generally quite subjective. I think you can find control by adjusting your tension, by applying more spin, especially if you're keep chasing that racket head speed. Like with a lot of these strings that are coming out that are softer with great snapback, I think if you can stay on the gas mentally, keep chasing that racket head speed, you will find the spin to pull that ball down, and that has been my experience with Mach 10 generally across the board.
So I'm currently playing hide and seek with Allie as she tries to find me to make me to do chores, and Beckett asked me to share my thoughts on Solinco's new Mach 10 string. We've been trying it since it was in prototype phase. Now it's ready for production. It's a soft string, plush on impact, and makes you feel like it wouldn't hurt your arm too much to use, but it still grabs the ball firmly enough so that you know you wouldn't want to go home with it alone after a long night at the bar. I used it as a hybrid with restring sync, and it was lovely. That was on my grass court tournament, and all around, looks good, feels good. Is it exceptional in any single way I can think of? Maybe the comfort factor more than anything. I think that given its response and its feel, this is something that you can use all the time, and it lasts a reasonably long time. There you go. A minute.
Do I put this in my top 3 all time? I don't think it quite takes it because I want a little bit more out of the feel. I prefer Toroline Toro. I prefer Grapplesnake Tour Sniper. I think I prefer Grapplesnake Tour M8 as well. But Mach 10 is probably floating just outside the top 3 there. Definitely a string that I could use in a tournament. Probably would prefer to put restring sync in the crosses just to dial up the control and feel with a string as soft as this. But I think they've done a fantastic job. If you thought strings like Toroline Toro were a bit too inaccessible for you, like the swing speed requirement was too high, the entry to performance on Mach 10 is quite a bit lower. So I think even if you have kind of like burgeoning 4.0 swing speeds, you'll still be able to access great performance out of this string, something that a lot of players I think couldn't necessarily find with like a full bed of Hyper G or a full bed of Solinco Confidential, because the swing speed required to get the best performance out of those older school polys, the ceiling, the threshold was quite a bit higher. Even though at the beginning of this video I said I don't think there's such thing as a perfect string, I think Mach 10 is a fantastic all-arounder, a great option. If you've had a hard time accessing polyesters before because you thought they were too stiff, Mach 10 will definitely work. Control is a lot better here than something like Toroline. Toro feel is better than Toroline Wasabi. Accessibility is way better than like a Lynx Tour, obviously a million times better than Alu Power. This is just a good string. If you have any questions about Mach 10, let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to get back